Great to see everyone out this morning. We're thankful for your presence. Before I get started, I want to take care of a couple of miscellaneous things. You are well aware that there's a men's retreat this weekend. If you men are not intending to be a part of that, let me encourage you to change your mind and come on with us. I'd love to spend some time with you. It's a good opportunity for us to get to know one another. Also, the ladies are having a trip at the same time, and I know that Amanda Joy would love to get to know all of you ladies. And this is a good opportunity. Friday night, particularly with the men's retreat, I'm not certain of the format of the ladies, but Friday night we're just kind of going to hang out, have some food and some good times together. It's very relaxed, and it's a good opportunity for fellowship. And then Saturday we're going to have an agenda, as you can find back there on the table. So please take part in that. Secondly, you may have seen Andrew Stubblefield come around just a few moments ago before we got started with some index cards and little pencils. Did every family get one of those? Are there any that did not? Okay, you're probably wondering, what is Andrew doing giving us index cards and pencils? Part of the work that I have chosen to do in my life, a big part of it, in fact, is about relationships. And those index cards are about just that. I want to get to know you, as does my wife. And a good way to do that is for us to visit you in your homes. You visit us in our home. And now I understand with everybody's schedule, sometimes it's, working that out can be quite varied. Somebody needs a morning visit only on Monday, or whatever the case may be. So what I'd like you to do is take that index card sometime before we leave here today. And if you would just fill that out and lay it back here, just put the family name, contact information if you want. If you want to visit, some folks don't want visits. So if my coming to your home would be an intrusion, put that down there, and I will file that in my directory, and I'll know not to disturb you. But if you would like a visit, let me know kind of what days and what times would be best for that, so that I can make that as accommodating as possible for everyone. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to just get with me on it. I look forward to spending time with all of you. On to this morning's lesson, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5, as we read just a moment ago. There was an interesting statement made in that. We're going to get to it a little bit later on. For the time being, I want us to just stop for just a moment and think about our mothers. And I talked about this just a little while ago, just briefly. And I kept that brief purposefully because I knew this morning's lesson was going to center on mothers and how we are to treat our mothers. Honor your father and mother. That is from Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. And it is repeated at least 7 times in the New Testament. Do you think the Lord has something on his mind when he repeats something like that so many times? And if you go back to that text in Exodus, there are so many positive things attached to it. There was a promise attached to this particular commandment. Now, as I look back on my youth, and back at that time when my mother and my father didn't know anything, I'm sure most of you that have come to adulthood understand that time in your life where you thought you knew it all and mom and dad didn't know anything. As I continue through my life and some of those teachings that my mother and my father tried to instill in me, as I run across the issues that came from, casting that advice off, guess what happens to my perception of my mother? She is brilliant, I'm here to tell you. She gets smarter every day that I live. So I want to think about that. I want us to honor our mothers today. Next month, you fathers will get your turn at this, and we will extol your virtues too. But today is Mom's Day. And it is right to do so. As we pointed out in the Bible class hour, Romans 13:7 says to give respect to whom respect is due, honor to whom honor is due. And I am convinced that our mothers are worthy of our respect and worthy of our honor. Indeed, the biblical text says as much, right? Honor your father and your mother. I want to give you some quotes about mothers. This one, coming from Ralph Waldo Emerson, he said, "People are what their mothers make them." I read a poem to you earlier entitled The hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world, and it was dealing with the impact that mothers have in everyone's lives. Our society can be shaped by mothers. Abraham Lincoln is quoted as saying, "All that I am or hope to be, I owe to my angel mother." Do you suppose he held his mother in high esteem? I think he certainly did. And this last one here from Lord Shaftesbury, he said, "Give me a generation of Christian mothers, and I will undertake to change the whole face of society in 12 months." That is the power that rests in a mother's hands. So I want to shift our attention. I could go on and on about mothers all day long, and about our personal quotes and things like that. But I want to get into some characteristics of mothers, and I'm convinced that there is more to it than just a simple definition of the word mother. We know what that is, one who gives birth to another. But there's so much more to being a mother. And I found that, biblically speaking, and just in general, one of the best ways to really get at the heart of a particular term, such as the mother, is to look at how it is used in certain analogies or metaphors, right? Now, the Bible uses the term mother metaphorically quite frequently. Notice 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, if you will. Here, Paul is talking about his labor among the Thessalonian Christians, and particularly his, and Silvanus, and Timothy. They had worked together there, and he's reminding them of how he treated them during that time. And what does he say? In 1 Thessalonians 2, verses 7 and 8, he says, "But we were gentle among you, like a nursing mother taking care of her own children. So being affectionately desirous of you, we were ready to share with you not only the gospel of God, but also our own selves, because you had become very dear to us." Now we can glean something about what the perception would have been of mothers to his audience there, right? They were gentle, you notice, is the first thing. "Among you, like a nursing mother taking care of her own children." This term here is rendered for taking care in the New American Standard Version is rendered tenderly caring for. To tenderly care for one. Now, we've all seen it. We have seen the hand of mothers, right? Mothers have a special quality, and I'm convinced because God is all-knowing, He knows the best way to do everything, right? He could have created us any way He wanted to, and we could have been able to procreate in other ways, but instead He formed a situation where it is a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, producing children. Do you suppose there are certain things that a mother and a father each can give to their children, things that are necessary? I submit to you that there are. Notice some of the terms that Paul uses to describe this motherly activity that they had. One, they were gentle, taking care of the children, being affectionately desirous of you. I've watched my wife, and with both of our children, at any given moment when she sees them, you can see it on her face, she affectionately desires to have those children. And I feel the same way. But notice, he applies this to a mother, and he says that they were ready to share with them not only the gospel, but also our own selves, he said. How many of us have not witnessed our mothers giving them themselves, completely giving themselves to their children? That is indeed what a mother does. They tend to and care for their children. So they are nurturing, is the first point I would like to make. Also, mothers are leaders and deliverers of their children. What's the first thing you do when you're in trouble? I want my mama, right? Everybody wants their mama, because mama is one that we know we can lean on. We can depend on her. She's going to do what she can for me. In Judges chapter 5, we see another analogy. You may be wondering where this notion came from. Do you remember Deborah, the judge in Israel? She was one of many judges who was raised up to deliver the children of Israel from their own folly, as they had fallen into idolatry and then been taken captive. And here she has gone and led Barak into the rout of the king of the Canaanites. Now, in the process, Israel was delivered, and they enjoyed 40 years of peace following the time of Deborah as a judge, as a leader, and as a deliverer. And this is what she said in Judges 5, verses 6 and 7. "In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were abandoned, and travelers kept to the byways. The villagers ceased in Israel. They ceased to be until I arose." So there were some bad things happening in Israel, right? And that continued until Deborah arose. And notice what she says. "I, Deborah, arose as a mother in Israel. Mothers lead their children, mothers deliver their children. Now, mothers also give wise counsel. 2 Samuel chapter 20, verse 18 and 19. You have another analogy being applied to mothers. Now, this is an interesting statement that is made. You have Joab besieging the city of Abel. He is looking for Sheba, who has raised his hand against King David. He's ready to destroy the whole city. And it says that a wise woman called for him from over the wall in verse 16 and said, "Listen, listen, tell Joab, come here that I may speak to you." And he came near her, and the woman said, "Are you Joab?" He answered, "I am." And she said to him, "Listen to the words of your servant." He answered, "I am listening." Then she said, "They used to say in former times, let them but ask counsel at Abel." And so they settled the matter. They settled the dispute. They went to Abel seeking counsel in order to settle that dispute. She said, "I am one of those who are peaceable and faithful in Israel. You seek to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel." So mothers are nurturing, mothers are leaders and deliverers, and they give wise counsel. And perhaps most of all, mothers provide counsel, don't they? There was a surgeon in a mobile surgical unit who is currently serving in the Ukrainian conflict. And he said that when soldiers are dying, when they're laying on his operating table, they all say the same thing. They all want their mothers. As these men, these big, strong, strapping men are preparing to die and they know it, they call for their mothers. This is some imagery that is used. If you take a look at Psalm 131, here David likens the care and the comfort that comes from God to the kind of care and comfort of a mother. He says, "O Lord, my heart is not lifted up, my eyes are not raised too high. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me, but I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with his mother." That is the kind of comfort that the Lord gives. So mothers provide comfort for their children. Now, I want to think about a mother's impact. What is it specifically that the Lord would have mothers to do? Well, obviously our physical needs are met, right? I owe my very physical existence to my mother, as do all of you. If you take a look at 1 Corinthians 11, verse 11, it is the interdependency. Woman was taken from man, but subsequently no man has ever been born except in this life without a mother. We all come from our mother, so obviously our physical needs are met. But I submit to you that the most important work that a mother does is to train their children to be godly and productive individuals. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 and 7. What did he say about the law, the commandments that he had just given them? Now, he doesn't use fathers or mothers. He just says to the nation of Israel, "You shall teach these statutes to your children diligently." Right? And when were they to talk about those? When they were walking by the way, when they were sitting in their houses at the table, when they rise up, and when they lie down. So basically, all day, every day is a teaching opportunity. Mothers do. That is one of the most powerful things that a mother can do. Now, consider the words of Solomon in Proverbs chapter 1. In Proverbs 1, verses 8 and 9, there is, here we are talking about the pursuit of wisdom. And Solomon is talking about father's instruction and mother's teaching. He says, "Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching. For they are a graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck." Basically, this garland was a highly decorative piece that was worn on the head to show approval or to show honor and grace. So, a mother's teaching, if we take it in and if we do not reject it, it is beautiful and it is valuable. Those are the things that he was trying to get across. All of this is aiming at instilling faith in her children, right? What was the statement that came from 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5 just a moment ago? He was commending Timothy, and he was mindful of the faith that was in him. He said he had a sincere faith, which he knew had been in his grandmother, Lois, and in his mother, Eunice, right? So we know of at least 3 souls who were living in a saved condition because one mother taught the faith to her daughter, who in turn taught the faith to her son. And then no telling who all was affected by the work of young Timothy as a preacher of the gospel. all because of the faithful mother. All because a mother doing what a mother is intended to do. Now, this comes to a head especially in 1 Timothy 2, verse 15. This is in a passage dealing with roles of men and women in the public assemblies, and it has caused a lot of dissension. Lots of women have felt as though they had been left out, or as their role is in some sense inferior to that of men. But what does he say in 1 Timothy 2, verse 15? Yet she will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control. The work of a mother is intended to produce faith, love, holiness with self-control. What greater work can anybody undertake to do? I can't think of one, can you? The greatest impact someone can have in another's life is to instill these qualities in an individual. So what is a child's response? How should we respond to our mothers knowing all that they have done for us and all that they continue to do for us? Well, honor. Honor and obey. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1 says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Simply, it is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. Now, this term honor is an interesting term. As it was used in the Hebrew Old Testament, it came from a Hebrew word that meant heavy or weighty. We have talked about the weight of an argument or the weight of a statement that someone has made. And it became a figurative application to those who were wealthy because their wealth was measured in weight. And so when they had all of this wealth, it added weight to their reputation, it added weight to their person. So over time, it came to mean that you highly esteem someone or you give them respect. So we are to esteem our mothers highly and we are to respect them. Now, what else? Value her teachings. Okay, as I said earlier, when I look back at the things my mother attempted to teach me, I would have been so much better served if I had just taken her at her word the first time. How much trouble I could have been spared. How much agony I could have been spared if I had only valued my mother's teachings. That is the thing that the Lord wants us to do. Encouragement. How many of you mothers have been encouraged by your children? I'm sure you all have at some point or another. A child has the power to do so much to the spirit of their mother. Right? If a child does wrong, you talk about cutting somebody deep. Nobody is going to hurt any worse than that child's mother. But when a child does something good, what happens? Oh, you swell with pride. So much joy inside. Now, encouragement. If you notice 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 1, he's dealing with the context of how to treat various folks within the congregation. Within the Lord's church, he says, do not rebuke an older man, but encourage him as you would a father. And the encouragement continues. Younger men as brothers, older women as mothers. Now, implied by that is that children ought to encourage their mothers, right? Today, that is what this day is about. We want to encourage all our mothers out there. We want you to understand that we honor and respect you. We value your teaching, the things that you have given to our children, or if it is our own mother that you have given to us. And we want to encourage you. One of the best ways to do it is to return some of that kindness, to return some of that care. A great many of the meals that I've eaten in my day, I owe to my mother. Okay? She earned a lot of them, and she cooked a lot of them. And she put them before me and was happy to do it. I didn't have to do a thing to wait for her to call me. Can you believe that? I was just sitting around minding my own, and she said, hey, supper's ready. And I thought this magically happened. Somebody whipped through the house, cooked that all up for me. And then one day I walked out there and I said, wait a minute, Mom's been there already? Where was I? Well, I was busy doing nothing, actually. Now I'll seek opportunities to give a little bit of that back. Notice as you go along in 1 Timothy 5, he said, honor widows who are truly widows. But if a widow has children or grandchildren, let them first learn to show godliness to their own household and to make some return to their parents, for this is pleasing in the sight of God. It is the right thing to do where we have opportunity to give back to our mothers. And our mothers have gone through so much to tend to their children. They love us in ways. That old country song, Jesus and Mom have always loved me. Oh, it's true to the core. Even when the devil took control, Jesus and Mom have always loved me. This I know. My mother never gave up on me a day in my life. And that's something. And that's true to so many mothers. In spite of whatever pain the children might bring, that just don't give up. I mean, there is nothing I have ever seen that is stronger than a mother's love. And that is a potent thing. And for that, I conclude with this. Let's thank God for her. James 1:17 lets me know that every good and perfect gift is from above, comes down from the Father of lights, in whom there is no shifting shadow or shadow of turning. No, there is no shifting shadow in Him, and you can bet that our mothers are one of those good and perfect gifts. And what does He say in Ephesians 5, verse 20? We are to, in the process of this praise that we give to God, He sums that up, giving thanks always and for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Today, we want to thank you, mothers, for all of the hard work that you do in helping us just grow up and become functional people, in teaching us the ways of the Lord so that we can walk in them and see the value of this life for what it's supposed to be. Cherish your mothers, because they will not always be here in this life. The good news is the things they've taught, the lessons they have provided, and all of the love that they've showered upon us, guess what? That will last forever. You'll never, ever forget that in all your days. And above all, thank God, because He's the one who made her that way. Happy Mother's Day, and thank you to all you mothers. If you're here this morning, I know this wasn't a highly evangelistic sermon, but if you have needs, if you're not a child of God, God wants to be your Father. He wants to shower His blessings upon you and give you eternal life. We'd be glad to talk with you about what needs to be done to make that happen. And then be glad to work with you from this day forward as you grow in your understanding of the Lord's will. If you are a child of God and you have stepped out of the way, if you haven't honored your father and your mother, if you haven't done the things that you know you need to do, and if that is something that has been in a public fashion, you need to make that right, now is the time. The invitation is extended to you as we stand and listen.